allowing me to be here. I really, really appreciate it. So I'm going to talk a bit. I don't want to bog you down with too much information. And I also have done this presentation quite a lot. So if
Mhm.
you want to interrupt, ask any questions, please feel free to do so.
Okay.
So just to kick things off, we're going to talk just about ELAP, ELAP 101, what we do. So I'm Chris Levings. I work as a community engagement manager for Eastside Legal Assistance Program, or ELAP for short. I started at ELAP back in 2017, the fall of 2017.
Mhm.
A little bit of background about me. My dad was military, and so we moved around a lot when I grew up. When I was growing up, so I lived in 6 different states before I turned 14 as a life of a military child, and then my dad retired in the state of Georgia, and
Mhm.
so he and my mom and my 2 sisters are back in Georgia, and I live here in Seattle with my fiance, in West Seattle actually with my fiance. Um, Pre ELAP, I used to work at the public defender's office, which is where you see in movies if someone gets arrested, they say, you have the right to an attorney. Or that
Mhm.
attorney, if you don't have funds, is the public defender's office. So I worked there for about 2 years, and then went overseas to Sri Lanka and Nepal, did some volunteer work with an organization, and then came here to Seattle. And so I've been with ELAP since 2017.
Mhm.
So today I'm going to talk Sorry about that. I'm going to talk today about what ELAP is, how to connect with us on our services, how to get involved with us if you're interested, and then Q&A. But as I mentioned, feel free to interrupt at any time with any questions, and I really appreciate you all being here. So to kind of ground us, this is Celeste. She's one of our former clients who was a mom of 3, and she was experiencing domestic violence and needed urgent support. We were luckily able to kind of step in and support Celeste in her journey to kind of being free from that situation. But a lot of times people actually don't have that option. They don't know what resources are available. And that's kind of what ELAP does. So we believe that everyone deserves access to legal help. We're a nonprofit, so we don't require any money from clients that we work with. And we basically work with people that are dealing with domestic violence, housing, financial health care, and immigration situations that have a legal solution. We also do a lot of community education about knowing your rights. And so this is an example of like learning about ELAP, but we've done them before about the eviction moratorium. We've done tenant protections webinars and other things as well. And basically, we work for free because we understand not everyone can afford an attorney. And I'm going to explain what legal aid means just briefly. So when you think of kind of legal situations that people fall into, be it Medicare situations, disability, tenant issues, that falls underneath legal aid. If you're accused of a crime, you are kind of get involved with the criminal justice system, is what they call it. But if you are involved in a civil dispute, so that's things like immigrations, domestic violence, you don't have the right to an attorney. And I'm not sure if you all are aware, but attorneys are super expensive. And so this term legal aid was created to be able to serve community members that couldn't afford an attorney to kind of get that legal support that they need. We see legal aid as a tool that helps to prevent poverty and to address instances of injustice, which is pretty common, unfortunately, in today's world. So we work to empower tenants, domestic violence survivors, immigrants, both documented and undocumented. We don't, the right word may not be discriminate, but we serve both undocumented and documented immigrants, veterans and seniors, and then patients at medical facilities. We kind of do this in a couple of different ways, but the main ways that you tend to see us out in the community is legal advice clinics. And so what we do at these clinics, it's where people give us a call and then we connect them during the pandemic anyway. We connect them with an attorney that speaks to them one-on-one to kind of help them to kind of get advice and counsel for their legal situation. We don't offer representation through our legal clinics, but it is an option for those that just want to get basic information about like what are the steps for getting a divorce, what should I do if my landlord is trying to evict me, and things like that. We also have a specialty clinic we call a wills clinic, and so we work closely with community members to help them to fill out a will. So this document says this is what I want to happen to my belongings if I pass away. A power of attorney. This document says if I am incapacitated, if I'm in a bad accident, if I can't care for myself, this is the person that I want to make the medical and financial decisions. And then the last thing is called an advanced medical directive. And it says, in the case that I am medically incapacitated, I don't want life sustaining, like I don't want to be put on a machine to keep me alive longer, or I do, and things like that. And so this is a specialty clinic that happens once a quarter. What happens at this clinic is volunteer attorneys help you to prepare these documents for free and kind of walk you through the process and give you some advice about it. And then the last piece that we do a lot of community work is know your rights information sessions. And so when we're talking about legal advice clinics, these are the topics that we address: domestic violence and family law. Like I mentioned before, if you want to get a divorce, if you're dealing with a situation with the father of your child and you want to have like a parenting plan put into place, if you want to learn how to get your family from overseas here, from another country here to the US, we have immigration clinics and immigration attorneys that can walk you through the process. We'll also cover debt collection and bankruptcy issues. We have a housing clinic. And one important thing I wanted to mention about the housing clinic is that that is one of the only clinics that we have that happens on Saturdays. And so we've realized how it can be really difficult if you're working throughout the day, that you may not have time to attend a legal clinic or take a phone call for a legal clinic that happens at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we've transitioned some of our clinics over to Saturday clinics to be able to serve, clients when we're depending on what they would like. We also have an employment and unemployment clinic, and then finally a general law clinic. And this is where we handle things like Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, disability questions, consumer law, and then contracts. Some of the other services that we offer as ELAP is, I mentioned a little bit ago about how our legal clinics don't offer representation. We do have in-house staff attorneys that are able to offer representation specifically for the housing stability program. So I'll get to that in a little bit. But before I get to that, I'll talk about our domestic violence program. So we work with advocates from organizations like Refugee Women's Alliance down in Kent, the Domestic Abuse Women's Network, LifeWire and New Beginnings, and other domestic violence agencies countywide, to where we have legal advocates that work at those organizations, and they partner with our domestic violence staff attorneys to help domestic violence survivors to get the aid that they need. So it can be things like putting in place a temporary protection order to keep someone safe from their abuser, helping out with a parenting plan to make sure if a domestic violence survivor needs to flee from their home, that they're able to take their child with them and have custody of their child, basically. We also have a program called Project Safety at the Kent and the Seattle courthouses, where if someone comes into the prosecuting attorney advocacy office, they're able to connect with our legal navigators. And if they have been the victims of a crime, those legal navigators can walk them through the system to find help and support that they need. So it could be something like connecting them with the Northwest Immigrant Rights Project for immigration concerns. They can also connect back with our ELAP staff attorneys for domestic violence concerns. And it's just a way to kind of help people walk through a very complex and very, quite frankly, unjust system in some cases, especially when it comes to people of color, sadly, to kind of walk through that system and kind of provide them support and resources. The Medical Legal Partnership is where we work with Health Point down in South King County, to where we have trained the medical staff. If they are seeing patients that may have legal problems, they can connect that patient with one of ELAP's attorneys, who is Dorothy. She's incredible. She's the Medical Legal Partnership attorney. Basically, with this program, we are trying to make sure that people that may have a medical situation that has a legal remedy, help them find that solution. So as an example, a mother went into the health clinic because her child was having lung issues. It was because after the medical staff kind of talked to her about it, there was black mold in the apartment, and the mom wasn't able to get an answer from the landlord or any support from the landlord to solve that mold issue. And so she was able to connect with our staff attorney to kind of help solve that issue. And then finally, the housing stability program, which I'll get to in a brief moment. But I just want to talk about what we're doing during COVID. So we've done a lot of trying to be flexible and address community needs. And so pre-pandemic, all of our legal clinics met in community gathering spaces like senior centers, places of worship, schools, and libraries, because we didn't want people to have to come to an office in Bellevue that was difficult to find. We would rather be where people can get to us. Because of the pandemic, we can't do that anymore. Although in the fall, we will probably have some of our clinics that are going to in person. But for right now, we're doing all of our legal clinics where you meet with an attorney over the phone, or if you have Zoom capabilities, over Zoom. We also have online webinars, like I mentioned before, where we talk about different pressing legal topics. And I will also mention that it's kind of the work that I tend to do a lot of, which is organizing these events. And so in the future, if there are questions around immigration, for example, or domestic violence, and kind of what are the warning signs and what are some resources, I'm more than happy to bring some other staff members or attorneys to kind of talk about those topics if it would be useful for you all, for anyone really. They love coming out and talking about these things. And then finally, we have something called the COVID Legal Aid Project. And so in the beginning of January, we, along with, there's 25 or so other legal aid organizations in King County that offer free legal aid. Organizations like the West African Community Council, like Benefits Law Center, like Northwest Immigrant Rights Project. And what we did is we put together a website, covidlegalaid.org. And I'm trying to type it in the chat, but my chat isn't coming up. Anyway, covidlegalaid.org. And that is where we have all the information about those organizations. It's like a legal resource directory. It basically says, hey, this organization does this. This is how you connect with them. And so we put together that website for individuals if they needed legal support from agencies. So I just want to throw that out there. So for those of you that are wondering, how can someone be eligible for our services? It's pretty simple. You have to live in King County or have a case that started in King County. And so as an example, say for instance, you are someone who is fleeing from domestic violence and you filed for divorce in King County, but you fled to, say, Pierce or Snohomish County. Since your case started in King County, we're still able to serve you. And then financially, you have to be 200% or below the federal poverty guidelines. So as an example, for a household of 3, if you make less than $3,600 per month, you will qualify for our services. And that's all the services that we mentioned before. We don't charge anything for our services. And then finally, one important piece is we don't count the abuser's income in domestic violence cases. So we recognize that a lot of times in domestic violence situations, the person that is trying to flee doesn't have control of the finances. And so we don't count the income in those cases. The other program I kind of wanted to highlight is our housing stability program. And so this is for people who are facing eviction or basically anything that would stop them or that may prevent them from staying housed. It could be negotiating a payment plan with a landlord. It could be like, even though there's an eviction moratorium in place, some landlords are still sending out eviction notices to community members. And so we have 3 staff attorneys who are able to help out to kind of solve those kind of situations and be an advocate for the client and for the tenant in these situations. For all of our services, for our legal clinics and for our housing stability program, you can connect with us at the number that's down below, that 425-747-7274. We also have a Spanish hotline, and while remembering, an interpretive line too. So if you or a community member wants to call and you would prefer to use a language other than English, we can connect with an interpreter. That goes for during the intake when you speak with Brenda and Cynthia, or even when you meet with the attorney as well, because we don't want language to be a barrier. And so this is, I'll breeze through this. This is just kind of mentioning kind of the community members that we were able to serve in 2020 and kind of the different kind of workshops that we did. If you'd like to get involved, you can invest in our work. You can find a link to that at elap.org. If you or someone you know is an attorney and wants to volunteer their time, we are always looking for attorneys to kind of provide support to community members. You go to elap.org and sign up for our e-newsletter and then help us spread the word about the work that we're doing on social media. I also try to send out, when I can, probably every couple of weeks, some resources in the area. So like webinars that are happening and things like that. And so if you would like to be added to my email list, you can feel free to email me.
Is your card?
And
Sorry.
then something else that ELAP is involved in is the Washington State, it's called the Washington State Plan on Civil Legal Aid. And so there are 5 kind of components of that are focused on making sure to increase access to place race equity, and kind of solving is the wrong word because it will require a lot more work. But putting race equity as number one principal thing that we as civil legal aid organizations are concerned with in Washington State. As ELAP, we do a lot of community coalition building and want to convene and connect people with issues that affect everyone that we serve in the community. And that is the basics of the presentation that I have. I would love to have any questions or concerns or anything that I didn't explain very well. That is also my email address. I'm always available, well, during business hours. You can always feel free to email me with any questions and anything like that. But please, any questions?
Hi, Chris. Thank you for coming today, and thank you for your presentation.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I had a question about, you said for people whose family is outside the US and you help them. I was just wondering, how is that, like if they're refugees or if they already have an ongoing case, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so the immigration attorneys in the volunteer space, they're looking anything having to do with immigration. If someone already has a pending case and wants an update on it, they haven't heard back. If someone just has a general question, say my family member that lives in Somalia would like to learn how to kind of come to the States, what does that look like? It's basically anything involved in that process around immigration.
Thank you.
Of course.
I see Fortune's hand up.
Thank you. Question. I saw that you guys handle power of attorney. Just wondering if those power of attorney could also be like an adult who's suffering from mental health, if the parents were trying to gain a power of attorney. Would that be something that you guys would do?
Yeah, that falls under adult guardianships. And so, yeah, we do offer advice and counsel on that side of things. I will say guardianships are one of the hardest to find attorneys to support. And so we've done it before where someone's asked a question during our wills clinics that are held quarterly, and we're able to help out. But yeah, you can always give us a call and we can try to find a way. Another thing that we've done before is if it's information that's needed, those definitely can be handled by the clinic. But if it's more like you have, I'm not trying to say, if this is a topic that's super important to kind of you all as community members, I can also bring an attorney to come and talk about it and kind of give kind of the ins and outs and give a presentation about it as well.
Actually, that's what I wanted for attorney to come out and to talk about, because thank you, Fortune, for actually bringing this out. A lot of people are struggling. This question and wanted to address how can they help their family member without hurting them, because you know this comes out a lot in our community, and Fortune knows that because Fortune is also a mental health and a counselor. Am I right, Fortune? Am I saying wrong?
Mental health nurse, thanks. No counselor.
That's it. And she works for Somali Health Board right now, and she is the expert. She sees it a lot every single day, more than me. But yeah, it'd be great if you.
Wow.
If
I
you
have
can,
a mom who's actually, sorry, Safia, Saade.
yeah.
I have a mom who's actually looking going through the steps. So this will be nice to connect you with her.
Yeah,
And like Suad said, we need more information for the community. So if we could have someone come back here and give us more detailed information, that would be great.
Yeah.
Suad, let's talk after this. Because I need to have an email out to a couple of people, because that's the main thing that other communities have been asking about recently. So yes, I can find something for that. Someone for that.
It's a gray line in the community, you know, dealing with a loved one who really clearly needs help, you know, who are incapable of helping themselves, but then dealing with the law, how do we navigate that? It's been really hard, and not knowing, how to, deal with it. It's been really rough. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, and
Go ahead.
yeah, just to piggyback off of that, Chris, how much, I guess, how would you say some of your clients, or what number of your, the majority, or are Somali, or like, I know you cater to people of color, but do you have clients that are Somali or from the East African community?
we do.
You do.
Yes,
A
yes,
good
yes.
amount. Mhm.
Yeah, I can give you the proportion number. I'm not totally
Okay.
sure, but I do know what we've been focused on is looking at what languages tend to
Yes.
be more needed. And so in terms of what we've seen, it's Spanish,
Mhm.
especially around immigration, but
Yeah.
Amharic, Somali, Vietnamese,
Mhm.
and what was the other language that we had? Chinese, I believe.
Okay, yeah. So they do know that these services exist and they're available. They have access to them. That's why where my question is, I guess, going. Because some people are not aware of the, like the services that you offer. Yeah.
Yeah, no. And I will say one of the harder things is getting the word out, especially during COVID.
Yeah.
And then getting to the point of where what we found is, and one of the reasons why I always mention I'm more than willing to come and talk with community members, because if you're attending, like, if you're in the advocate circle and in this space, you'll hear about webinars that are happening for like legal topics. But if you're not, how would you have access to that? And so a lot of times it's wherever people, like, whatever connections I can make, I'll come and talk about ELAP and our services, and also connect with other organizations too. That's an important piece, I think, a lot of times that I try to do as well. If, as an example, if someone has a problem with Social Security disability, sure, we have volunteer attorneys that can give advice and counsel, but they don't offer representation. And so if someone calls me and says, I need representation for an SSDI situation, there's an organization called the Benefits Law Center that does SSDI. Someone specifically for South King County is Daniel Parker, who works over there. And so I'll try to make connections directly with them so that they can help out the clients if need be. And it's a part of like trying to break away from some of the silos that we see a lot in this work. And so I'm sorry, that was a tangent. Did not answer your question.
Oh, no, that's fine.
There
Yeah.
are some community members that don't know, and I would love to connect more of those community members to kind of talk more. I'm always open to that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
A couple of weeks ago, I sent you one of my friend. Did she call you about the eviction? I mean, not eviction, but she was moving out and she was having an issue with the guy. She was really afraid and shaken up about, she was like, come with me. I'm trying to move out and this guy is giving me a hard time, walking. She was, okay. The guy was just basically harassing and the not attorney, the building manager was not even helpful, and she was just like, I was like, I can't do nothing. And she's calling me like 6 a.m. in the morning and she's doing walk out like 10 a.m. and I'm like,
Yes. If you can have her give me a call back, because I asked her, she had an appointment when she called me. She had an appointment in a couple of hours. And I asked her to call me back afterwards and leave a voicemail message. And I don't think she called back. I didn't get a voicemail message. And so I'm not sure if she's still in that same situation. I would love to kind of talk more. Yeah, I do remember the person calling me. I just don't remember them calling back.
Yeah. But
if
some
she's
people,
still in that situation, feel free to have her reach out.
She moved out, but she was just harassed, like this maintenance guy, and he was supposed to check her off, like when you're moving out of a building, you have like a walk on, what is it called, walk off or whatever they call it.
It's like a walkthrough, I think.
Walk through, but he was just harassing her.
Yeah.
She reported to the building manager, and building manager was like, no, that's not my employees. They're very nice. I don't know what you're talking about. That kind of, she just.
Yeah, that's a dangerous situation. I'm happy she was able to move out. But that's something that people should.
I told her to call the police if she was afraid of her life, because she was Federal Way and I'm here in like Renton. I'm like, I can't make it there, and I had work to do that day. I was like, if you're afraid of yourself, that this person is going to harm you during that time, I said, call the police. If not, I say, while he's doing that and you're doing the checkoff, I say, have your camera on and just do it. Or
Yeah,
have,
and record
have
what's going
somebody
on.
face your cousin or your friend, FaceTime them and make sure you have somebody on the phone with you.
Yes, and that reminds me of something. Thank you for mentioning that. Whenever community members, they're saying they're having either discrimination or they're seeing cases where they're in danger, if you can ask them if they're in a safe space, or if they're able to kind of get things in writing. Especially, I think the best example I can give has to do with like eviction proceedings. So even a verbal threat of eviction means that the landlord has violated the eviction moratorium. But if the landlord gives it in writing, it's so much easier for attorneys to enforce and kind of prove. Unfortunately, you have to prove in that sense, but prove that the landlord violated the law. And so if you can get things in writing, though, that is super helpful.
Yeah.
And let me kind of throw that out there for those that may not be, I mean, I'm sure everyone is by now, but just in case. While rent is still due, there is an eviction moratorium in place through June 30th. That means there's a couple of things about that. So landlords cannot evict someone for non-payment of rent. So you can't be evicted for not paying rent. There's a couple of other pieces of this that people may not realize. Landlords cannot charge late fees during the eviction moratorium. Landlords cannot, they cannot raise your rent except for very specific circumstances if it's written to your lease agreement. So if you sign a lease agreement that said that the landlord can raise your rent like by X amount or something like that, that's more iffy. But if a landlord just sends you a letter saying I'm raising your rent, that is against the moratorium. And what's the other one? And then, yeah, and if you get an eviction notice, there are only very specific reasons for why a landlord can evict you. And one of them definitely is not paying, is like they cannot evict you for not paying rent. And so I just wanted to highlight those things about the eviction moratorium because there's some in the community that doesn't know about that. One of the worst things that we see, especially in the undocumented community or even documented immigrant community, is landlords taking advantage of people because of their status and threatening to call immigration on them if they don't pay the rent. That is illegal. Yeah.
How about, I've seen it, mold, like landlord don't want to come do something about mold or like house leaking.
Yes, I have to say this gently because, so I'm not an attorney. I should back up and say I'm not an attorney. So there's certain things I can't say. I can say, even though there's a moratorium in place, that doesn't mean that a landlord, like, they don't, what's the word? They still have a responsibility, especially if something affects someone's livelihood, which mold in an apartment definitely does, to get those things fixed. They have to give notice when they're going to come into your home.
Yeah.
But they definitely have, like, just because there's a moratorium doesn't mean that they can't come and fix things. Yeah, in those situations, you can always feel free to send me an email and I can connect with the housing attorneys to talk about that. But yes, even though there's a moratorium in place, landlords still have a responsibility to take care of things around the house. Apartment.
Because I have one of my clients, I mean, her house is just, whenever I go visit there, I keep asking her, and this was before the pandemic, did you tell your landlord? She said, yeah, he's keep telling he's coming, and she has like 8 kids. And the house, I don't even know how, I used to just stay no more than 5 minutes at her house. I remember I would leave the house because you can tell the house, like you can tell the water when they come in and the wall, the mold is just there. So she will just clean with bleach. And
I'm sure she has pictures of this, right?
Yeah, of course.
Which city is this?
Burien.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, connect me with her if you could.
I will. Yeah. It was horrible. And it still is. She still lives there. Yeah, she still lives there. And some of her kids, they have she has 2 autism children also, and yeah, I always tell her that this landlord, you need to get rid of him. And then I have one other client who lives in Skyway. He told her you have a 2 months to move out, and she was living in his house for 10 plus years as a Section 8. And he told her you have a 2 months to move out.
Did he give something in writing?
No, he just told her to have 2 months to move out.
Yeah, And though same thing, have them connect with me.
Yeah, I will. I was hoping them to come because I invite them today. I was like, maybe you can get help today. I'm interested more about the will, because I know a lot of our the community that I'm from, we don't talk about will, a lot. And maybe like after the pandemic, I don't know who can I invite to come over to do some kind of a will writing or.
Yeah, that would be our wills clinic. Let me explain it this way though. I know sometimes with communities, they may not understand what it is, and so what we always recommend is if you already know, like, for example, I know when I pass away, like who I want my stuff to go to, like be my fiance, and so it'll be pretty easy. And I'm poor. I'm like young. I don't have a lot of stuff, so it's pretty easy to write out a will.
Yeah, it's
For
easy.
people that may already be married or may have been divorced a couple of times, it's a little bit more tricky. And so what we try to do is we ask people, like, if they already know who they want their things to go to, if they already know like if they already know kind of like who's going to be their financial agent and things like that, that's great. It sounds like they're perfectly ready for the wills clinic. But if they're not sure and they want more information, or they want to know, like, what is an executor of my will? What does that even mean? We recommend that 2 avenues to go. You can either go to our general law clinic and have an attorney kind of explain to you one-on-one about it, or we can do something like I suggested before, around like we're doing with the guardianship in the future. I can have someone come and talk about what wills are. Either way, it also depends on the immediacy, right? And so our wills clinics are held every couple of months, every 2 or 3 months. In between those times, if we had a case where someone unfortunately was in the hospital and they were near the end of their life, they didn't have time to wait for the next wills clinic, and so we were able to find an attorney that was able to help them out. It's like an ad hoc kind of thing. So no charge, again, for free. So it really just depends on what's needed by the community member.
I like that. And I like the power of attorney, because I like to have somebody who, when it comes to, if it comes to time to pull the plug, who I can trust and can make that call for me.
Yeah, and one thing about the wills clinic, it just completely slipped my mind. So normally our services are 200%. So for a family of 3, it's $3,600 or less per month. For the wills clinic, we've doubled that. So if you have a family of 3 and you make less than $7,200 per month, you're going to qualify for our wills clinics. And so
if you have 3, how much you have to make a month?
Less than $7,200 a month.
Okay.
So the reason that we increased is because we also wanted to kind of connect with community members who may work on the front lines, so grocery store workers, but also work for nonprofits during the pandemic. And it's going to be that level from now until the end of time. So it's we've increased the income limit. So last time we had quite a few nonprofit workers who were able to kind of get their wills and power of attorneys and advance directives done.
I like that, because I'm looking forward to that one. Rose, any last questions? We have 10 more minutes. Sorry, I took all of your time. Because when you were in Open Arm, we were in a large group. So now it's like you're in my dent. So you're in my dent, lion's dent.
I'm totally fine. Please go ahead. I thought I heard you for a moment. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Can you explain the power of attorney? Because I know that, like, if you don't designate somebody as your power of attorney, that there's like a hierarchy, because I don't think a lot of people in the community, they know about that, especially when you go to the hospital. Like, if you don't have that in place, like, basically what's like the hierarchy?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about the complexities, because quite frankly, I don't remember. And also there's like a piece that's like an attorney piece that I don't really want to kind of run afoul if I'm wrong. That would be bad. But I will say the danger, actually, I'll explain what it is. I can do that. So a power of attorney means that if you are incapacitated in some form or fashion, that you have an agent, financial and medical. So the financial person is going to be able to get access to your bank accounts. The medical person is going to be able to access your medical documents and make medical decisions for you. It can be the same person or they can be separate. That's what the power of attorney does. If not, it depends if you're married. It depends if you have kids. There's like a whole bunch of things that come into it that I don't want to confuse because I'm not 100% sure. So I will just say what it is, and you can kind of guess from there why it would be important. And that's also something, sorry, I should back up. That's also something when the person comes and talks to us about wills, anyone that does wills knows about power of attorney, so they can cover that too. And you get more of a detailed answer. Sorry, I can't be more precise. I just wanted to, I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because our community, I've worked in the hospitals before, and I work in a hospital right now. And a lot of people don't know that if you don't like have a designated power of attorney, like how that hierarchy goes, like depending on, I didn't want you to go into detail, but just like what, like who are the people that have like high power of attorney, who can get power of attorney if you don't have one in place.
Yeah.
Oh shit, you mean like somebody hierarchy?
Sad.
Girl, I know you did not just say that.
That didn't just come out. Wait, hierarchy? You mean somebody in the family can make a decision for you?
Yeah, like for example, like that, like your children, your spouse, like your parents, like so there's like a different hierarchy, like of like who's like the first person like that can that will be that task will be delineated to.
Lord, I'm
So one thing that we see in with domestic violence survivors,
quickly.
yeah, no worry. One of the things that you see with domestic violence survivors, something that they're super concerned about. One of the reasons why those kind of documents aren't just for, because a lot of times you hear estate planning, you hear will, you think of elderly people. It's not just in those situations. If you are someone who is married to an abusive spouse,
Oh yeah.
and you don't have a power of attorney document that it like doesn't name them, or I'm sorry, you don't have a power of attorney, then when you go to a hospital and you're brought there by your, you can kind of follow along what that means.
And I have seen it many, many times, Chris. I've seen it, that situation. I'm a doula. I've seen it a lot of times where women even lost a baby because of that idiot, stupid guy who she calls a husband, has the hierarchy power, you know, and just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are really important documents. When we have our next wills clinic, it's going to be July, August timeframe. I can send out an email to community members, and it really is basically as many people as one. This first come, first serve. And so if you would like, I can add you to the email list whenever I send out my updates.
Yeah,
anyone else that would like to be added in, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah.
Anyone else that would like to be added in, you can always feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to add you in.
Yeah, if you guys needed to be added on the list, please put your email on the chat.
And even after this, if you're like, I'm not sure about this, but you change your mind later on, you can feel free to email me later on.
Definitely.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Chris's email also is on the chat too. Yeah, but that's very important to have that. As a Black people, as a Black person, do a lot of our people have their will ready? Just
not that I've seen. So I've been doing the wills clinic since I think a little bit after I started. I have seen a couple of Black people, like folks that look like us, that have it. And it's just something like growing up, I didn't know about it. Like we never talked about it.
Me too. Never talked about it, never know about it.
Yeah, it's only in doing this work that I found out about it. And some of it is, you know, the elderly have other things, be it like higher level things like systemic racism, but also like lower level things. Like I'm just trying to like get through my job for the day. I don't have time to think about these things.
Yeah, survive.
Survive. And then for younger people, like, you know, like me, it's like, I don't have to worry about that. I'm fine.
I'm young. I don't.
Yeah. And so there's some of that, but there's also just a lack of like not knowing about it, you know?
Because the information, if it's not given to you, how are you going to think? How are you going to, you know, prepare? And
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about wealth too, that's another thing of where you hear all these kind of options that are open to kind of other others that don't look like us. And you're like, I didn't know that existed. That's
Mhm.
odd.
Yeah.
To answer your question, yes, I was gonna try to see if I could put the slides in here, but I can't. But yes, I'll go ahead and send the slides to Sasu with the slide if that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Because when you were doing the presentation and you mentioned that, I was like, wow, there is a clinic that help people out for a will and power of attorney. I was like, what? I mean, I know like when you go to hospital, especially in Swedish, they will ask you, even if you don't have it, they'll give you this package, which I filled it up long time ago. I don't know if they still have it. And I wrote it down few names of, some of them, my sisters, minus my husband. He's not here, he's downstairs. Yeah. So, and I don't remember which one I even wrote her name down, but I remember doing something. If something happens to me, they have to pull the plug out, but that's about it. And I don't know how legal is that either, but I need to have something of my own that, I can just like, hey, listen, if something happens to me, this is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
And
I'm having a surgery, and I don't know if that one is actually legal, that I can go beyond, my lifetime. I think that one was only that time when you have a surgery, like if you don't come out of surgery.
Oh, got you for that
You know what I'm
specific.
talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I will say, if you don't have a copy of the will that you filled out before, do know that when you make a new one, it's going to take precedence. And
Got it.
so
that's what
yeah.
I want. I wanted the new one to take a precedent because that's the one I wanted to keep it. Yep.
Just so
And
you know.
also, when I went to the pilgrimage, 2018, they make you write a will.
Really?
They make you write a will because there's chance you might not come back. Saudi Arabia, because if you die there, they want your body to be buried there. So they will make you write a will. If you die, who's going to take over? So they have you write a will, and then they will make you keep a copy here, give it to somebody who you trust, and they cannot open. If you die, they will open and read it to the family. And then you keep one and give it to the imam, like the imam, the rabbi, or the church, and you take one with you. So in that time, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm writing down my will. And then it made me think when I came back, I was like, this is the time I need to write my will, if this is serious, because you have
that. I was just gonna check in. Do you still have that old the will from 2018?
It's not a big document. It's just the basic things. Like if I die, who my kids are gonna watch, who's gonna watch my kids. Most of this is the kids and the wealth. It doesn't go specific like the house, the kids, the this and that. It's just a basic thing, like who are going to my kids gonna watch, who's my wealth going to be distributed. Just the simple stuff. It's most, even like in my religion, there is papers that call will papers, and that one you have to also go see an attorney too, but I don't know where to go from there. I have no idea.
But yeah, when we have next wills clinic, I'll send out an email and people can just call. It doesn't take long to get qualified. And then just to kind of walk you through what happens, we're doing all these over Zoom right now. We're not going to do it in person for a little bit of time. So
I know.
yeah. What happens is you join a Zoom call and then you get put into a breakout room with the attorney or attorneys, and they walk you through the document and help you to kind of get it prepared and everything. And then after the wills clinic, you'll get something in your email, or we've mailed them to clients before that has like all the documents, and you just take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. Hey guys, I see Shukri come join us. Thank you, Abayo. Anybody has last question? We come to an end. Chris, it's nice to have you. It's nice to see you, and I can't wait next time we see each other. God knows when, but we'll talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody last question? I'm gonna let Chris go. All right. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate it. We'll communicate in email, and I will connect you. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Of course. Thank you all so much for allowing me to be in this space. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. I'm going to send the slides to you right after I get off here. You all can feel free to email me at any time. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
Take care.
Oh.
Thank you.
Bye. Hi, Gabdo. Salam alaikum.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
How are
Sorry,
you?
I was thinking to come in, but I forgot somehow. I saw that my kids
Oh, no.
are going to Duxie.
Oh,
They must be very interested. Yeah.
yeah, it was very interested. Yeah, we were talking about محلتها will in محلتها how to actually you missed the part that he was talking about power of attorney of if محلتها familkaaga oo ku jiro. Actually Fortune, who was here, brought up like if familka uu ku jiro qof oo mental health how can you take over power of attorney like oo ku manage garan kartaa qofkaasayto and they have a lawyers ayay qabaan Eastside legal assistance to help and support familka qofka oo power attorney qaadanayo oo caawinayo qofkaasayto in the long run. Yeah.
You guys record it, I guess, so I can.
Oh yeah, we recorded, and also I will share his information with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they help every community and it's free. They even have a legal حتى محل clinic or حتى you visit them in attorney, you have any question you have and they will answer for you, and it's free.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Yep, including
Thank you.
marriage, divorce, child support, and domestic violence, immigration, everything.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing with us. Thank you.
Anytime, Habibti. How's the family? Everybody good?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Well, it's good to see you again.
Yes, bye. Thank you.
Hiya. Assalamu alaikum, Gabdo. Enjoy your evening, guys.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Hi, Habibti.
Bye.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye.